Hi everyone, welcome to another Pinterest design challenge. I know the intro's a little bit odd, but my footage of me picking each photo got a little messed up, and so I just thought I would add them here so you weren't going in without context and without being able to see what we were going for. For this design challenge, I decided to play a little bit differently. Instead of focusing on one character design, I am doing two, which kind of allowed for more expression and getting to play with new aesthetics, which made some very fun, like trying to figure out how to work things, especially when it came to like the color palette. So for her, I didn't want to give her like a blank general expression. I decided to make her a little bit smug. She's looking over at the other character, and I was trying to guess what kind of relationship they had. They really screamed siblings to me, and so it's kind of giving a I'm better than you look to him, which I thought was really fun. I kind of wish I did the same thing to him. He kind of has more of that general expression. Her face gave me a little bit of trouble. You can see I do like a lot of redrawing and resizing just to figure out where her features should go. Her nose always kind of looked a little too flat, and I just kept trying to add a bit of roundness to it to see if that would help put it together. And I think it really did. It was very helpful and making her kind of look more like her reference photo. I do want to like go in and start doing more noses like that. I typically do very flat noses, and adding the roundness kind of makes it a little more playful. Her pose really influenced how I viewed her. Seeing the guitar, it made me feel like she was some famous pop star, and so I really looked for that aesthetic while I was looking for images. The shirt, I really liked it because it felt very flashy. It has the lace, it has the leopard print. It's very visually interesting, but it is also something I could really see a famous pop star wearing. It's also the same with the pants. I thought they would also kind of fit this vibe we were going for, since they had, the bell bottoms with the fluffy bottoms to them. I just thought it really tied together well, and it kind of made her a very interesting person to look at fashion wise. And then, similar with the shoes, I picked them because they felt very pop starry, even though I think they're just like general jelly shoes. I like the glitter on them. I love fashion with glitter, and I really felt like it matched her vibe. And then for her accessories, they were a little bit odd. I'm not a huge fan of them, but we had this little flower necklace thing, and then the little arm sleeve band things. I don't know what you call them. I love the sleeves. I hated the flower necklace. I think it made her design way too cluttered. I would go back and get rid of that immediately and go for something significantly smaller. But honestly, I love her design. She really gives off pop star princess, and she turned out beautifully, even with some of the challenges I had with her. With her design, I feel like I put a lot of emphasis on her aesthetic and who she was, where with him, I just did not have that same calling. He wasn't pop star, he had music associations, but that's because he was tied to her. And I felt like a lot of his character and what I was going for was too much related to her design. I think I really took this, okay, they're siblings, they're related, and kind of ran with it. So I do wish there was a little more variation and he got to be his own person. And then once again, there's a lot of drawing and redrawing the features just to figure out where they sit on the face and how they should look. If I were to change anything, I would just extend his face, like the chin, just to kind of make it a little bit thinner. But outside of that, I really liked his face, and then his hair. It made me think of James and that 2000s emo look, and I love that look. While no aesthetic really drew me towards his creation, I was looking at a lot of very academic styled clothing for him. I felt like it would be a good counterbalance to her design, where his is a little more casual and relaxed, while hers is a little more flashy. However, his color palette was the death of that idea. It was very bright. I thought that would be fun to go with his casual look. It was not. It ended up being a nightmare. For his shoes, I just kind of went for something simple. It has a little bit of art drawn onto them. Um, I really like them. I really like the loose shoelace style I go for with it once I start rendering. And that really helped the design, but it didn't bring it back to what I wanted it to be. And I'll be honest, I was not a fan of the accessories he had. We have these little chain, necklace, and shoulder pads, and then a star watch. The watch wasn't bad, it just did not come out right. And if this wasn't like a character illustration and was like a general illustration, I think it would look better, but since it's so shrunk down, it just looks very out of place. Oh wait, I did change the face. Okay, well I did. Okay. And then yeah, I went in and did some more wrinkles and stuff and cut down the eye so it wasn't in the way of the hair. I made a huge mistake here and morphed all the layers into one for each character, so then when I had to go erase stuff, it made it really hard. But now I'm just kind of going in and adding color to them, so when I start doing the grayscale layer, there's a little bit of color that pops underneath it. It makes any areas that like I didn't color in kind of blend in so you can't see it as well. And then I just kind of kept a general value when it came to shading. I didn't really go for anything too special, but I did make sure to make each item its own layer instead of just doing a flat, everything gets colored in the same layer style. After playing around with her skin color, it was finally time to start working on her overall color palette. Now, this took a lot of trial and error and just figuring out where I wanted everything to go and what looked best. I knew automatically I wanted that pink shirt and the blue jeans, but outside of that, everything else was just kind of playing around and seeing how it turned out. And once again, the flower is causing me problems. I wanted to make it match the color palette just like I do for all the other accessories, but after coloring it in, nothing was really working. It looked incredibly dead, and I didn't want it to be like that. I thought it should be very bright and colorful. I even tried to mess around with color overlays to see if I could push the colors more, but just nothing was really working. And so finally, later on, I'll go in and I'll make it more of a realistic color. And it definitely does help, but I just think the problem was with the flower. So here I am adding in a lot of smaller details like her lip color. I decided to go for purple because that was just kind of like a tone I was seeing in the lips. And then I started working on the guitar. Now, I did not really go in and add a lot of value to the guitar. I just kind of flatly did it. And that kind of caused me some problems. As you can see, it just wasn't picking up color. It was coming out very dark no matter what I was doing. And I realized I had messed up. And so once I get to rendering, it gets a little hard, but it does get fixed. But I just need to get better at not doing that. After working on the guitar, it hit me. I still wasn't happy with her color palette. So I went through layer by layer, checking every single one to see what I could fix. And I made some updates, but even then, I still wasn't a huge fan, and I would have to go back in there and try again. I wish I could say that it was just her color palette that gave me problems, but it was also his, and his was significantly worse. I went in with my color palette, and I was so excited to use it, and it just felt too much for this character. It was really bright, and I just felt like so many of the colors were too similar. So then when I was trying to add them on, they couldn't really be next to each other. Like the yellow and orange and that blue and blue. And so I spent a lot of time just kind of throwing in a color, seeing how it looked, not liking it, trying something else, not liking it again. I don't think it's the palette's fault for not working. I just think it's really hard to throw it into one character design just like that without making it a little overwhelming. And I think I could have given myself a little more leeway in not using just that color palette. Here's where I'm finally going back in to fix this color palette. I'm just adding them to the canvas so I don't have to constantly swap back and forth. And I'm just going through and trying each layer to see what I can change. I kind of forgot for a moment there that the hair had to stay the same. Because that's the hair color that we chose. So I kind of played around with that before it hit me like it has to be pink. I ended up sticking with the yellow blue. I wasn't a big fan, but I think it was the best palette that worked with each other. And I'm also going in and finally fixing up her sleeves, trying to pick their colors out. I kept trying to go for this lighter tone, but it hit me. I just loved the purple, and I think that's what it needed to be. By this point, I was looking at a shirt and it felt super empty, and so I added some stars to match what was already on there. And then I looked for a music note brush, realized I didn't have any, so I just traced over the one on the shirt. I kind of wish I did a little bit more of a design. It feels like his shirt is very empty, maybe even had I included it into the pants. Oh my god, my guinea pig just got the zoomies and he's being loud. But I do kind of wish I had filled up his clothing a bit more. I'm adding some color to their skin to make them look a little more alive, and while I was doing his skin, it hit me that I had forgotten to give him a thumb. The reference image I was looking at, his like hand is in his pocket, and that's not what it's like in this one. So I just went ahead and re-added it, and then went back to adding in some color. It just makes the skin look a lot more alive, especially when there's a gray value beneath it. It tends to make them look a little deadish. Just by doing this, it brightens up the colors. Okay, you might be wondering, will you pick dyed hair? When does that come in? Well, here's where it finally starts. I've been trying to figure out the whole time how I was going to do it, and I tried at first just rendering it and then going in and adding strings. Usually I make my dyed hair very blocky, but for this one it didn't really work. It just wasn't sectioned right for that. I kind of forgot that I needed to do this. So then I tried just doing little strings, but I wanted it to really represent the initial color, which is there's not really a base color, there's just colors throughout it. But no matter what I did, it just didn't look right. I even tried doing it blocky and it felt like there was so much going on. Even changing like the lower level wasn't working for me. So I just decided to scrap it and I would move on and do it later on once I got everything else figured out. Here's the point where I finally realized that I wanted to change the color, so I went ahead and found a new pink and green that really make the flower look more alive. I'm definitely happy with this change. It looks definitely more alive than the yellow and blue did. But altogether, I'm still just not happy with this flower and how that turned out. And here's when I start adding leopard print to my design. I don't know what happened to the recording there, but I had already started doing it, and then I just kind of followed the pattern on the shirt and just kind of loosely started making marks that vaguely resembled it. I ended up kind of messing up and not adjusting the layer here, so it's on the same layer as the shirt. Later on, I'm gonna go in with a new brush, fix it up, but I was so excited to get to do this, and I'm so proud of how my leopard print ended up turning out. By this point, I started going in and adding lace. I was super excited to do this. It was like one of my favorite parts, and I was so scared I was gonna like forget about it and then post a piece, and it hit me like, oh man, I forgot the lace, because I always end up doing that. I was kind of nervous about how like the lace brush would work, but I really like it on this. I get a little nervous about those artificial brushes and how they appear on a piece, but I think it blends in really well. And I think you can tell that it's like a brush, but I don't think it's as noticeable. I would be lying if I didn't say the jeans were one of my favorite parts. I loved the tear that they had in them and how you could see this like white broken layer underneath them, and I had to make sure I got that. And so it was really fun going in to do this like broken layer, and then you have like the fluff at the bottom of the jeans. I didn't exactly match them to the color. I know in like the jeans they're that brown color that matches like the little fluff. But there's still like a little bit of a white layer that matches the fluff, and not to mention I love doing the fluff. I love doing fluff in general. So I knew automatically when I saw those pants I was just gonna have so much fun doing them. I realized afterward I had forgotten to add the flowers to the shoes, which is killing me because these are huge flowers all over the shoes. I don't know how I forgot it, but I don't mind the fact that I did. In fact, I'm kind of happier about the fact I didn't do it. I focused more on simple shoes that kind of had like that jelly look, but they're also very glittery, and I feel like the flowers may have drawn too much attention to the shoes. Um, I do still kind of wish I added some extra element to them though. Makeup is one of my favorite things to illustrate, and I'm so excited by the piece I chose. It's very shiny and it has a lot of color and glitter, and I was just super excited to do it. But I had a little bit of trouble with the lips and making sure I did it the right way. I tried different brushes before finally landing on the pencil brush and going in and just kind of dabbing on the colors to show that there's like this shine, and that's where all the colors coming from. It makes them look really soft and shiny, which is exactly what I wanted. Here's the start of our eye makeup. I did a lot of trial and error like I do every time I do makeup. I try something new every time, whether it's airbrushing the eyeshadow on or dabbing it down, even playing around with eyeliner and eyelashes and how color impacts them. I think this is one of my favorite ones. I kind of wish I did it a little bit differently, maybe similar to my swan illustration of summer, where it's definitely a little more shiny in that way. But I really just love how dabbing on all of these colors creates this shine and this idea that when light flashes onto it, there's more color to it. Finally, we are back on the hair and I am back to trying everything. And for this attempt, what worked for me was blocking. I just kind of loosely went through, started placing down colors, and I ended up enjoying how this was going. And I just kind of kept going into spaces, trying to separate colors. And then I think I put like overlay on it, and it came this like really shiny dark look to it. It was very beautiful and it made every color stand out, and I knew this was like the perfect setting. And then I went in and started rendering it. I kind of got to play a little messy with it. I would just kind of start adding color and kind of loosely shading it, kind of adding some shine to it. It's very loose and probably not how it would look had I done the hair a little bit differently. But honestly, I don't hate it. It kind of makes it look like a wig. And if we're going for female pop star princess, maybe that's it. She is just wearing this brightly colorful wig. Because I finally figured out how to do her hair, it hit me how to do his, and I did the exact same thing. I blocked down the colors and just kind of started adding stuff to see how it would look, and I think the rendering of it came out beautifully. It looks super shiny, but it also, like, all of the colors go together incredibly well, and it looks beautiful to look at, and it's not too overwhelming, which is what I was kind of worrying about with the hair. I really don't know what it was, but this makeup called out to me and I decided to give it to him. And I was super glad that I did. I was worried that these colors weren't gonna match. They were gonna be too dull on his face considering his whole, bright theme. But it turned out really well. And you can see I bring back that dribbling effect. I'm just gonna start doing that now because I'm realizing it works incredibly well, especially with shine. And I just kind of went in, gave him his eye colors. I went for blue. I couldn't really see on his face like what color his eyes were, but they looked relatively bluish. And then I went and added some shine underneath the eyes. I really like just like this attention that it's not just above it, it's a little bit below. since I didn't go for like lip color or blush or anything, it really just kind of adds a little more like detail to his face. So for his chain, I decided to go for pink. I thought it would pop the most out of everything, and that pink was just kind of this color that we kept using everywhere, but it wasn't really used too much and I could get away with it. It was a lot of trial and error on how to do this. I used another brush and then I kind of went over it and it's kind of roughed out this where like the value to it, where things were darker, where things were lighter. I played around with like using yellow to show like the inside of it. I don't really work with chains a lot, so this was definitely like an interesting first attempt, and I think if I were to do it again, there are some things I would probably do differently, but I think these turned out pretty well for like the little knowledge I had on them. And then I went in to render his shoes. I did yellow and orange shoelaces that were kind of coming off. And then I used the yellow and orange again to add the little drawings on the shoes. I used like a brown multiply layer to make them be a little bit dirty and a little bit darker, just so they weren't too overwhelmingly bright. And it really worked well for them. I really am impressed with how these turned out. I was kind of like anxious about the designs and I really love them looking at them, especially after I went in and did like a darker value and some highlights on the shoe to really, make it look more alive. So unfortunately, OBS did not record the last half of this, which wasn't too bad. All it was just going in and doing some final renderings and going in with the airbrush to get the darker shadows. But I did include a speed paint so you guys could see the final results. I really love this project. I think these characters came out like so beautiful, and just it was so exciting to get to do this. And we reached 700 subs. Super big, super exciting, and I want to do something really special. So if you like this video, like and subscribe. Come, join this art journey with me, and I'll see you guys next time.